My name is Mike Brimberry. I'm with Model Technology Solutions, and click through here. So we're talking about proactive cybersecurity. We have a series of these, and we went through everything related to zero trust. We started with identities, looked at endpoints. We looked at the cloud access security broker, Intune, endpoints, Defender for endpoint. We went through Sentinel in the previous ones. In this one, I want to go through a quick round of introductions. I want to talk about the threat landscape. And one thing I realized going through this, we talked a lot about how we use a lot of these tools and things of that nature, but I haven't really dug into really digging in and how to set up some of these components. So I want to talk about proactive cybersecurity, looking at Defender for Office 365. So we'll go through that. I'll do a quick demo, step through some of those, and finish up with some questions. Anybody have any thoughts or comments about that? I'll move on into introductions. So who we are. So not in attendance today, but Jason Rutherford, he's the co-founder and managing partner of Model Technology Solutions. My name is Mike Brimberry. I'm the director of cybersecurity. And also on the phone, we have Dan Ramacati, Microsoft senior technical specialist for cloud endpoints. Dan, thanks for being on here.
Me, Mike.
All right. So for Model, we are starting our 10th year in business. We specialize in cybersecurity, Microsoft 365, data center expertise. I'm a CISSP with 20 years of experience. I'm a virtual CISO for multiple organizations in various industries. I'm a cybersecurity speaker and panelist. I have multiple cybersecurity and industry certifications, including encryption, networking, IT operations, and cybersecurity. At Model, we have some core values that I would like to go through here real quick. First one is we lead with integrity. We always look at doing what's right for our customers. We serve with compassion. Our aim is to help you improve, just basically simply help, right? And we like to be revolutionary. We love to innovate and find a way either to bring you information or technical solutions. And we live life like a mullet, right? We're professional, we have the right balance of fun, and we don't take ourselves too seriously. And once again, just to recap, our services specialize in Microsoft 365, cybersecurity, cloud and data infrastructure, and we have a service desk offering. Once again, this overall service here, or this presentation, is around zero trust. And those three pillars of zero trust are verify explicitly, use the least privileged access, and we assume breach, right? So as we went through this series, we looked at identities, endpoints, using Microsoft tools like Intune, Defender for Endpoint, Microsoft Sentinel, and then today we'll be looking at Defender for Office 365. So why I wanted to do that is because the top threats that are out there today are, and these have been the top two for the last few years, right? One is the unpatched software or vulnerabilities within software. And then email. Email still remains one of the biggest targets for phishing, malware, drive-by compromise, things of that nature. And 91% of those attacks start with email. So some of the other stats here are there are 30,000 plus domains that are created by criminals every 3 days. Now, this is from a 2021 Verizon data breach report, and I haven't had a chance to go back and update these for any of the latest stats, but a staggering amount start with email. So that's why today I wanted to look at some proactive cybersecurity focusing on Defender for Office 365. Like Steve said at the top of this, if you have any questions, please just reach out. I'd like to have this more interactive than just a straight demo. All right, so to start here, I usually go to portal.office.com, and that's what portal I'm looking at here. And what I want to do is go to the admin center to get into the security portal. And you can tell when you log into portal.office.com, if you have this admin tab here, that's how you know you can get in there. So once in there, I click show all and I can go to the security portal. And then before I get started with that, when you're in your admin portal, if you look at settings and go to domains, now this one is just a demo tenant, so it's not going to have all the details, but I wanted to look at some of these DNS records. Now there's not going to be any in here, but the first thing that I'd want you to take a look at to verify is your SPF, your DKIM, and your DMARC DNS settings. And what I mean by that is I just went to this email test site. There's plenty out here. I don't subscribe or recommend any certain one, but what I wanted to do is just go and look at model-technology.com and look up our DMARC settings, right? And you can see what is actually out there in our DNS record for DMARC, right? So go out there, look at some of these tools and validate that you have the proper SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records. And what do those do for you? You hop over here. So SPF, or your sender policy framework, right? So SPF helps validate outbound emails sent from your custom domain. It's coming from who it says it is, right? So these are one of the trio of pieces of DNS settings that you can have for your email to validate and add extra security layers to your system. So SPF, Senders Policy Framework, it validates who it says it's coming from. So nice quick check to go out there and see what you have set up, right? In some of these, like here, bounce back over to this one. So this is that demo tenant that I'm using. And so by default, if it's on Microsoft.com, it has that SPF built in, right? So it says who those emails are coming from. Sorry, I think there was a question. No one? Okay. So going out here, you can validate what your SPF record is, and you may have different third-party apps, perhaps like Salesforce or any of the marketing tools that would send on behalf of your organization. Now you'd want to have a kind of internal discussion about what those SPF records should have in order to support your organization. But starting with SPF, the DKIM or DKIM, it's one of the trio of authentication methods, SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, that help prevent attackers from sending messages that look like they came from your domain. So DKIM lets you add a digital signature to the outbound email messages in the message header. And then the final one is the DMARC. The domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance, it works with the SPF and DKIM to authenticate mail senders. So this trio is really foundational to ensure that you have security around validating who you're sending as, who it's coming from, and being able to use these later in some of these policies that we're going to set up to validate email that's coming into your organization. So once inside the security portal. This is where you're going to have access to your cloud apps, reports, settings, assets, um, and the like. So just to take a quick reference around here, I'm looking at a subscription that has E5. So you'll be able to notice, if you have Defender for Business Premium, it may look a little bit different. You may not have all these selections in here, and I'll try to highlight some of those differences as we go through. Incidents, this is where you're going to be able to see all your incidents that come in. And then within here, you're going to be able to see where these incidents are derived from. So like, for instance, here in the service source, this came from the Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. You'll be able to see if it came from Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Office, and what those are. And why that's important is as you're starting to filter through here, if you have certain folks in your organization, you'd be able to filter out where these are coming from. So if you just wanted to see, for instance, Microsoft Defender for Office 365 incidents, maybe if you had a person in your organization or on your security team that focuses solely on email-based threats and attacks, they could filter those out and just be able to focus on those email-based attacks. Just to recap, I know we talked this at length in the last one on Sentinel, but in here in hunting, in advanced hunting, not now. Looking at in these schemas here, or these different tables, right? If we look down here, there's one whole section based on just email and collaboration. So these tables, email events, email attachment info, URL click events, right? These are things, now there won't be anything in this demo tenant, but simply clicking on this URL click events here is going to put this here. You're able to run that query, and it's just going to bring you back everything in that table from the URL click events. Once you get in there, you can start to use KQL to refine that search to see, for instance, like in URL click events, if you think someone in your organization or multiple people in your organization have clicked on a specific URL, you can search through here using KQL with these built-in things in the advanced hunting. There's a lot of other pieces that you can do with this. If you wrote a query that you want to be able to reuse later or get alerts on and take automated action on when certain events happen, you can create custom detection rules here. I'm not going to go through any today just because this demo tenant doesn't have a lot of data in it. But if that's something that you want to investigate more after this session, I'd be more than happy to sit down with you, look at things in your organization or in your tenant, and be able to create custom detection rules specific to your organization. And let's see here, threat intelligence, threat analytics. I like to show this one, as this really shows a lot of the kind of threat intelligence that Microsoft is surfacing, looking out across all the different tenants, everything that they're seeing from the millions of tenants that Microsoft hosts globally. And you can see here, this one has a threat tag of phishing. So tool profile, let's see if we can dig into this one and see if it gives us anything. So greatness is a phishing as a service platform with the adversary in the middle capabilities. It's active since mid 2022. So this is going to give you great insight into what is going on. You can see impacted assets in your organization. Are there any mailboxes? If you wanted to look at the analyst report, if you wanted to get more information based on the threat intelligence gathered through Microsoft and surfaced here. The other piece is the recommended action. So looking inside your organization, if you have weaknesses or recommended actions surfaced from Microsoft here, they will list those actions here that you can take to help protect your organization. So I think this is a great resource that is available right in the portal. Thank you. All right. So scrolling down here, looking at the settings, I wanted to point this out because Microsoft has started to pull. If you remember a couple years back, there was just about a portal for everything. So everything has started to move into this one area. So within the settings here, for instance, Microsoft Defender, you can start to see that these settings have been moved in here. Um, Email and collaboration, user reported settings. Now, in the user reported settings, this is really how you would want your users to be able to report in suspected emails. So this would be able for you to be able to put a button right inside of Outlook. They receive an email. They're able to flag that email as either phishing, suspected, junk, things of that nature. So all the customization and settings are now moved into the security portal under settings, as well as identities, cloud apps, and several others. You're not going to see a couple in here because we do not have the Defender for Endpoint turned on in this tenant. So please, whenever you get a chance, take a look at your settings, verify that you have these email and collaboration as it relates to email set up properly in your organization. So if there's something that you're seeing or not seeing in your tenant and you need help, please let us know and we'll be able to help out with that. All right. So now for kind of the configuration portion of this. So within the Defender portal here, under email and collaboration, let's go to policies and rules. Under policies and rules, the first thing I want to look at is these threat policies. Within the threat policies, Microsoft presents these preset policies, and let's take a look at those really quick. So in the preset policies, this is going to be an easy way for you to just quickly get things set up. So you have the standard protection and you have strict protection. And you can kind of read through here. So it's a balanced actions for malicious content, balanced handling of bulk content, attachment and link protection with safe links and safe attachments. So I guess this is a good time to talk about some of the differences that you would have with the different licensing structures. So let me pull up my notes here. So when you think of the different levels of licensing, so with what they call exchange online protection, you're going to get anti-spam, anti-phishing, and anti-malware. And that's what's considered the exchange online protection. When you get into Defender for Office 365, then they come in two levels. They have one that's called Plan 1 and Plan 2. And Dan, you may correct me if I'm wrong here, but in Plan 1, if you have Microsoft Business Premium, everything in Plan 1 is included.
Yeah, I'd have to look that up for the business plans. I'm not as familiar with those, but that sounds correct.
Okay. So when you get into Plan 1, that's when you're going to get um, these safe links and safe attachments. When you get into Plan 2, that's when you get into threat trackers, attack simulation, automated investigation and response, and the attack simulation training. And I'll show that here in just a minute. But if you need to investigate or understand what license you have and what level of advanced security that you have, something that I can help out with as well. So after going through that, let's look at how we go really quick into getting a secure configuration, and that is using these preset security policies. So within the standard protection, if we want to say manage, and really quick, who do you want to protect? We can select all recipients, we can select specific or none, In this one, we're just going to say all recipients. We can exclude some if we want. And then if you want to apply the Defender for Office 365 protection, which includes the safe attachments and safe links, we can just say, let's just pick all, whatever we picked in the previous one, or all recipients. Impersonation, this is something that I think is beneficial for most organizations. So in this impersonation protection, you probably want to select C-level folks or high-profile individuals in your organization. And here you can start to say, who are those protected users, right? So maybe your CFO, CEO, COO, C-level folks, and you'll be able to add those in here. Or if you have a protected custom domain name, in this tenant, we only have the default one. We don't have any custom domain names, but you can add those as well. And then if you have certain individuals that, or certain organizations that you work with closely, certain individuals or certain organizations that you work with closely that you want to make sure that you add to that trusted senders list, you can do so here. And when this is complete, do I want to turn the policy on or leave it off? And confirm. Done. Let that refresh. So right off the bat, in these preset security policies, we have turned on standard protection for all of our users. So the next one I want to do is look at the strict protection. So maybe out of the gate, we want all of our users to have the standard protection, but in this case, I want to have strict protection maybe for certain users, maybe for a certain group. Maybe we have like a finance group. Previously selected, impersonation, we can add those if we have some different level of impersonation that we want to protect here. In the strict policy, we can do that. We can add those users here. Protected domains, trusted senders, same as before. Turn it on, confirm. So one question you may ask, what if we have users that are in standard and in strict protection? In any case that the user is in both, the strict protection will take precedence. So one of the other pieces here you may be asking is, what settings are set between standard protection and strict protection, and can you tweak those? The answer is no, you can't tweak those. And what are the settings in here? If we go to this link here, we can scroll down and start to look at the security features name, what is in the default, what is in standard, and what is in strict. So you can use this to see what is applicable for your organization. Does it match what your organization's needing? What are the differences between strict and standard? And does it fit everything that you would need in your organization? Like here for bulk email, the default is 7, standard is 6, and strict is 5, right? And that's how much bulk email they're going to let through. Strict is going to be less bulk email, standard a little bit more, and default a little bit more than that. And I'll have all these links set. So I'm going to turn these off because now we're thinking in these threat policies, if we use the presets, but it really doesn't fit our organization and maybe we want to tweak these, it's not as complicated, but it gives you a lot more flexibility if you create these. So maybe small, medium business, maybe the presets fit right out of the gate. If you don't have a security team that's there to review all these, we can just set those presets. add some to standard, add some to strict. But if you need more granular control, we need to create those policies here. So we were talking about the different license levels. So you can see safe links and safe attachments here. If it has a little box over here to the right that says premium content, that you're not licensed for the um, uh, Defender for Office 365 Plan 1 or Plan 2. If you're just using the standard Exchange Online Protection, safe links and safe attachments will have that box over here to the right that says premium content. So before we jump in and start to look at these policies, the first thing I want to do is jump down to quarantine policy. And I'd like to define one of these and kind of look at each one of these settings so you can kind of match it to your organization. So if I click on add a custom policy here, call it model test. So in the recipient's message, how do we want our end users to be able to look and view the quarantine? So if in limited access, the recipients can view quarantine messages, but they cannot release messages from the quarantine state. They'll have to request it. Now, for maybe some advanced users, we can specify what release actions they have. We can allow the recipient to request it to be released, or we can allow the recipient to release the message from quarantine themselves. And you can have multiple policies applied to different groups of people. Maybe our standard users, maybe we don't want them to be able to request it at all, or we want them to be able to view it. They could delete it, they could preview it, or they could block the sender, but they have to request from an IT administrator to release that. But maybe we have some developers that work with a lot of third parties, and maybe they need to have some special access so they can release their own, or a special group inside your organization that we want to reduce the frustration of them having to request that email to be released from quarantine, and we can allow them to release it themselves. So that's just a decision that you'd have to make within your organization. So I'll just make this one. They can delete it, they can preview it, they can block it, but they have to request it from an IT administrator. And I'll show you how that comes into play here in a minute. One of the other pieces here, if you look up here in global settings under the quarantine policy, we can set who the sender's name is, the sender address, subject, kind of disclaimer, language. We can also add a company logo, and then we can set the end user spam notification. So is it within 4 hours? Is it once a day? All right. So here you can see that previously we looked at the strict and the standard. Those are both off. And then there's this anti-phish one that's on by default. And then once again, as we go through these policies, there's a lot of commonalities between them. Who are the users, the groups or domains that we want to target? Maybe this one, we want the whole domain. And here's where we can start to look at that phishing threshold, right? The default value, the severity of the action taken on the message depends on the degree of confidence. So we can start to increase this: more aggressive, most aggressive. We can enable all the users, domains, mailbox intelligence, intelligence for impersonation. I would go ahead and turn this on, and the enable spoof intelligence too. When we get to the actions here, if the mailbox intelligence detects an impersonated user, do we want to redirect it, move it to the junk folder? Do we want it to quarantine? And if we quarantine here, what is that quarantine policy that we want to do? And that's why I set the quarantine policy so we can set it in here. If the message is detected as a spoof, what do we want to do? If we quarantine it, what policy do we want it to take? The safety tips, I think these are good to turn on as part of, different security and awareness training ideas or tips for the users. So that if this is the first time they've been contacted by that, it's going to have a tip. Unauthenticated senders for spoof. Show those tags. We can review what those are and submit that. So then as you start going through all these different policies, right, you can see the granularity that you're going to have with anti-spam, anti-malware, safe attachments, and safe links. So with safe attachments, it's going to look at how, let's look at this built-in one here. Let's just create one. Once again, who are we going to target? When you start to look at these, this is how it's going to look at messages when they come in and how it's going to deal with attachments, right? So monitor and block actions might cause a significant delay in the message delivery. Dynamic is only available for recipients with hosted mailbox. For block or dynamic delivery, messages with detected attachments are quarantined and they can be released only by an admin, right? So what is something that you would look for in your organizations? Attachments will not be scanned by SAFE. We will monitor the message, deliver the message if malware is detected and tracked and scanning results. And then once again, what is that quarantine policy? Everything kind of goes back to that. How do we want our organization to behave whenever those are scanned and brought into the organization? So one other thing with the safe links and safe attachments. So sometimes threat actors will generate new domains and have malicious content on that new domain that hasn't been scanned, that hasn't been rated, that's not been added to any of the signatures or anything that Microsoft has. Well, if one message is delivered and later is found to be malicious, right, because they want to get those links delivered and not make them malicious until they can at least get one or two delivered inside of these safe links using like the 0-hour auto purge or ZAP. It'll know each mailbox that those messages were delivered to and be able to reach into all those mailboxes that have been delivered and pull that message out. Show you that here. It's anti-malware. Here you can, in this anti-malware, look at these different file types. You'll be able to add other file types here. But here's that piece right here for that enable 0-hour auto purge. And what this does is once, those signatures or those hash files or any of those indicators of compromise are detected after delivery, this will allow it to automatically reach back out to those mailboxes and pull those messages out. So then looking at that here, if you already have some of these, if you want to go in, you can go back and look at that and make sure that you have the 0-hour auto purge. Okay, so I ran through a lot of that really quick. Are there any questions so far? All right. Before I move on,
Mike,
yeah,
just to confirm, this is E5, right?
the one that I'm looking at right now is E5.
Okay. And are the like anti-malware, like the under the policies, is that available in E3 or only E5?
So yeah, let me recap that again. So when you have a license for an Exchange mailbox out of the gate, you get what's called the Exchange Online Protection, or EOP, and those contain anti-phishing, anti-spam, and anti-malware. With an E3, if depending on what plan you have, so the Defender for Office 365 has two levels, Plan 1 and Plan 2. Plan 1 includes the safe attachments and safe links. Uh, these safe attachments, I should mention too, it's not just for email attachments, but also for SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. So if you look in your own tenant and you look next to safe attachments, if there's a little box right here to the side that says premium content, that's how you know, or that's a quick indicator of if you don't have either Plan 1 or Plan 2.
Okay.
Yeah, so real quick, easy way, little square box over here say premium content next to safe attachments and safe links. Also, I should say safe links. That's also for other Office apps like SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. So very powerful.
Thank you.
All right, let's see where I left off. Oh yeah. So just to recap that, go look at your quarantine policies and look at how you would like it for your organization to work. And just to look at that one more time here in this one, we allow the users to request a release from the quarantine, and they will be able to either block, delete, or preview messages. And you can have multiple policies. So you can have some users that can release their own messages. You can have some users that have to request that, where you have to have an IT admin come in and release those. So I'd probably start with the quarantine policies, see how it fits within your organization. If you don't want, or if these preset policies work, you had a standard and a strict. Those are a quick, easy win to get protection on your organization. And but you can't change the settings with those in those policies. If you need more granular control for anti-phishing, spam, malware, safe attachments, and safe links, I would go ahead and start to construct those policies in here. And that way you can start to target certain settings for certain groups in your organization. And you can have those different levels. So start to try out those anti-spam, with the bulk email handling. Maybe if you start it with lower, see if you're getting too much bulk email come in, and you're able to go back in there in the anti-spam and turn those up. And you can see here, like in this inbound policy, right? So that bulk email is set to 7. Right. So a higher bulk email threshold means more bulk email will be delivered. And you can see this one by default is set to 7, right? And we can start to tune that down if we want to slowly um, see, and you'll be able to find that threshold too, right? If we have a good quarantine policy, if these things are being quarantined more, but the users are needing it, then they'll have to request more releases. Or if you're getting too much bulk email come through and the users are requesting, hey, I'm just getting too much junk email, you can come in here and start to tune that. So what I think is pretty straightforward, either preset policies or custom policies that's where you're really going to get some more of that protection, starting with, the SPF, DMARC, and DKIM. Looking at when we first started talking about how we would set up our own SPF record. So if an SPF record coming from a different organization, if it's failing SPF, what do we want to do? So if the organization is using SPF or it's being spoofed, and the user says it's coming from XYZ organization, but the threat actor is spoofing that, how do you want that to handle that? So we can come in here in the anti-spam policy on the inbound and say, if SPF is failing, just block it. So one more thing to keep a lookout for there. Okay, so now that we would have our threat policies set up, we have it applied to our organization, we have the quarantine policies, we have our SPF, our DKIM, and DMARC set up. How do we go about ongoing configuration and improvements for our system? Within here, this configuration analyzer is going to come back and look at those. Let's say we have the standard or strict set up. So, and it's going to show you the different policies, like here in the model anti-phishing. Let me just expand this here a little bit. Maybe. Oh well. So we have it set to, or it's recommending, say, move to junk folder. So if an email is sent by someone who isn't allowed to spoof your domain, our current configuration is send it to quarantine. Microsoft says recommended is move it to junk folder. So within your organization, you can decide to, yes, I agree with that. That's how I want it to be. That's the setting that I would want. We can select it here, and then up at the top, we can just click apply recommendation, and it's going to go to that policy and set it for you. If we want to review it, we can just click on view policy here. Here it said move the message recipients to the junk folder. Or if it was this one, move it to junk folder. So those, based off of those recommendations, you can start to tune based off what Microsoft is seeing out in the organization. Here, bulk email threshold for anti-spam on the default one changes 7 to 6, right? Do we agree with that? Apply it. What about under strict recommendations? Right, we can start to look through these and see if we include custom domains, change true to false, right? But we don't have a custom domain on this one. So it's just going to be different for your organization. We can start to look at any of the drift or history to see what changes have been occurring over time. So you can see here that today that we changed the ZAP to true, right? And you can see here that's increasing our security or decreasing, right? And all that relates back to the overall secure score. So within secure score, you're going to see a lot of recommended actions to help secure. And as we get these built out, you would see identity, devices, apps, and there's one more that I can't remember off the top of my head. But within those recommended actions, you may see other ones in here. Ones that are completed, ones that you need to work on. What is the overall history of those settings? And how do we go about comparing ourselves to other organizations? So something nice to go and look at to see how you compare to organizations of similar size and industry. One other thing I'd show you under email and collaboration under review. This is how you would get to see what's in your quarantine. This is kind of the same same kind of interface that your user would see, where they could, if we gave them the rights to release that email, or they could preview the message, or they could block the sender. That sort of thing. If you have an E5, you can start to look at the attack simulations and training. This is a real simple way to start doing phish testing. You can look at these simulations here, very quick and easy. Launch a simulation, pick a specific type of technique, so like credential harvest. And when this would deliver the email to the user, it would give them a link that says, hey, you've got a new Outlook email or Facebook message or FedEx package. Log in here to look at it, right? So when you get into the payload piece, you can start to look at the predicted compromise rate. So 2 failed messages. This says it's going to be a 27.1, so that's pretty high. And you can see the different kinds in here: Amazon gift card, American Express password reset. And here you can say include all users or specific users or groups. You can exclude some. And then if a user fails, you can automatically assign training based off of the recommendations of the modules that you were selected, or you can select a training. What is the due date for training? And here in this catalog here, there's just tons and tons of training. Once this populates, one of the first ones that I like to do is report message. It's only 3 minutes long, so whenever, usually with a client or customer, when we send out a phish test to begin with, we like to start with the report message, because this shows the user within 3 minutes how to use and report email messages using that report message button that's built into Outlook. And you can preview the message here, or preview the training here, real short and sweet. Just click the payload and compromise. So anybody that clicks it or is compromised, they need to do some training. And then what are the landing pages? And we can kind of preview what those landing pages would look like. You were just phished by the security team, it's okay. And then they get assigned to that training. You can select your languages, default language. I know I ran through that really quick here, but within the attack simulation, if you have an E5, it's going to be built in. You get the ability to phish test your users with several different payloads. You can customize the automation of it. And when a user either clicks or is, quote unquote, compromised by the phishing attack, you can automatically have it assign training. It's all recorded. You have logs on the different users that have taken the training. You can have it send it to the manager. So it's a very robust solution to be able to get in there and test your users and understand what they're doing. I got a question, Ron?
He asked a question earlier, about 4 minutes ago in the chat. Do all users need E5 for the simulator to be useful?
That is a great question. I don't know if Dan is still on here or not.
What was the question again?
Ron had a question. If we want to use the attack simulator, do all users have to be at the level of E5?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know the answer.
I'm taking a note here. Ron, I'll look into that and get you an answer.
Okay, I think you can hear me now.
Hey.
Yeah, thanks. This comes up a lot, and because people will say you need an E5. Well, what does that mean? An E5? Do I need 100 E5s, or does the administrator just need to have the E5, or are you somehow applying this on a tenant-wide, basis? It's just not clear. Microsoft doesn't make it clear either.
Agreed. I will. I'll take that as an action item. Ron, I'll reach out to you as soon as I get the answer to that.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. Any other questions?
No, unless there anybody has any other questions, and you don't have any additional content to cover, we'll make the recording available to everybody soon hereafter.
You
Yeah,
bet.
I'll say
Ron,
this real quick. On the E3 question, when I go to like my Microsoft E3 license applied to a user, and I look at all the apps, it shows that something called Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps Discovery and Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Plan 1 are bundled into that Microsoft E3. So I don't know if that's the same thing as the broader question he's asking.
right.
I often find with Microsoft the terminology is part of the challenge.
You bet.
But it looks like we have access to all these things when I was following along, you look like all those things were turned on in our system using a Microsoft E3 license.
Yeah, and usually whenever I look at a customer's tenant, right, we have to do just a little bit of discovery to see what licenses, and sometimes there's a mix. Like we have some that are E5 and some that are E3, and we have some that are E3 with a E5 security license add-on. So there are a lot of different options and ways, and usually it's better. I usually sit down with the client. We just kind of look through it and see, and then do a little bit of research, talk to Microsoft, look at their overall licensing to get answers to those questions. But from the general sense, what I've seen is Business Premium has the Defender for Office Plan 1, E5, sometimes have Plan 1, and then we'd have to just do a little bit of investigation on that plan too.
A lot around advising on licenses. So whoever you're buying your licenses from, whether it's a LAR, a VAR, a CSP, should be able to walk you through that.
Yeah, we're self-service.
Gotcha.
We have to read.
Yes. Yeah, and that's all the content I have today. I really appreciate everyone hanging out and having some good questions. Hopefully it was helpful and gave you some things to think about. Go check in your tenant, see how you're configured, see if there are any improvements. And as always, if there's anything I can do to help out, please let me know.
Hope y'all have a great week, and anything we can do to help, let us know.